He is the youngest ever, the kid of the group, the 10th human being to walk on the surface of the moon. Family and his love of God defines who he is. There is a photograph of his family with an identifying caption, "Still on the moon," with a medallion commemorating the Air Force's 25th anniversary. Capsule communicator for the first moon landing, chosen for his coolness under pressure and calming Southern accent. He epitomizes discipline and professionalism, a gentleman always, a skilled fighter pilot, and Apollo 16 moonwalker astronaut, Brigadier General Charles Charlie Duke, Jr., United States Air Force retired. Born October 3, 1935, in Charlotte, North Carolina, to Charles Moss and Willie Catherine Duke, a twin to his brother William Bill Duke and his younger sister Betsy. Inspired by the service of his World War II Navy father, Charlie chose early a military career, transferring to the Admiral Farragut Academy, a United States Naval Academy prep school in St. Petersburg, Florida, graduating valedictorian and his senior class president. Setting the bar high from the very beginning guided his future. Entering the United States Naval Academy in 1953, while on a 2-month summer cruise to Europe aboard the jeep carrier USS Siboney, Charlie became severely seasick and changed his focus away from a career at sea. However, fortunately, an Academy familiarization flight in the N-3N seaplane had just the opposite effect. It was definitely flying for him. Graduating in June 1957, his Bachelor of Science degree in Naval Sciences, he entered the United States Air Force Academy and upon graduation was commissioned a second lieutenant. And flying it was. Charlie was the quintessential Air Force fighter pilot. He loved it all. Graduating near the top of his class in the F-86 Sabre jet, he was assigned to the 526th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, transitioning to F-102s at Ramstein Air Base in West Germany. Encouraged by the Air Force to continue his education, Charlie was off to MIT to study aeronautics and astronautics. His flight plan was changing. While at MIT, Charlie met his future bride and lifelong partner, Dottie Meade Claiborne, a graduate of Hollins College and the University of North Carolina. They became engaged on Christmas Day 1962 and married on June 1, 1963. They have 2 sons, Charles Moss Duke III and Thomas. Off to the world of Air Force flight testing in 1964, it was Class 64C at the Aerospace Research Pilot School, ARPS as it was called, at Edwards Air Force Base, where aviation was exciting and often dangerous. As luck would have it, Colonel Chuck Yeager commanded the unit. "Wow," was Charlie's only response. The Yeager aura was infectious. Those years at Edwards and the Happy Bottom Riding Club were memorable. It was now 1967. Charlie tied academically for second in his class and was offered an instructor position in the F-101 Voodoo and the F-104 Starfighter and the T-33. It was then, encouraged by Yeager and others, he applied to NASA's recently announced Astronaut Group 5. Among 44 finalists, he was sent to Brooks Air Force Base in San Antonio for physical, psychological, and very specific qualification tests. And in April of '66, the 7-member acceptance panel, chaired by Deke Slayton and included Alan Shepard, John Young, Michael Collins, and others, approved the Duke selection, and NASA's official announcement on April 4th listed him as one of its 19 newly minted astronaut candidates. Off to Houston in spring of 1966, the entire Duke family would soon see the Johnson Space Center, kind of a mecca for aspiring astronauts. It was time for initial astronaut training. Intensive courses in astronomy, orbital mechanics, spacecraft systems, geology, and of course desert terrain and water survival. Charlie and the others were assigned to oversee the advanced development of the Saturn V launch vehicle and were present at Kennedy Space Center for the launches of Gemini 11 and 12 in the fall of 1966. Deke Slayton oversaw position assignments, and Charlie picked LM, or Lunar Module, and gained responsibility to oversee the lunar module propulsion systems. He joined in 1969 with Joe Engle and Jim Irwin as support crew for Apollo 10, which significantly advanced his skill sets in flight plans, checklists, mission ground rules, emergency procedures, and other support functions necessary to become prime crew for a future mission. His lunar module propulsion expertise and calming demeanor during the most challenging of tasks led Jim Stafford, Apollo 10 commander, and Neil Armstrong, Apollo 11 commander, and first man to step on the moon with his crewmate Buzz Aldrin, to request him as their CAPCOM, capsule communicator, the only person to talk directly to the astronauts over the radio, the single point of contact. Charlie was tested often during his distinguished career, and when John Young and Ken Mattingly teamed with him to feverishly develop emergency procedures in the wake of the disastrous Apollo 13 explosion, which caused and aborted a lunar landing, their efforts and others made the difference, demonstrating clearly NASA's selfless dedication to mission accomplishment and crew safety. Now Charlie's turn. March 1971, the Apollo 16 crew was announced, and deservedly, it was the young Duke Mattingly team, which would guide the next Apollo moon landing. Their destination, the Dakar Highland, the highest elevation landing to date, was the target for this fifth lunar landing mission. Kennedy Space Center, April 16, 1972, launch day, and after numerous, which is normal, nail-biting technical problems, the landing was authorized by Houston. It was Duke and Young in the Orion lunar module, undocked from the Mattingly-flown command service module, Casper. Landing coolly on the Cayley Plains, Charlie became the 10th and youngest human to ever walk the moon's surface. Charlie and John spent 71 hours and 14 minutes on the moon. Charlie logged 20.24 hours in extravehicular activities and the rover, collecting some 213 pounds of soil and geological samples. Though the Apollo rock collection protocols and ventures into the American deserts were extensive, Charlie often jokes it was always confusing. However, he said, "I just picked up rocks of every color." Charlie's old disc jockey friend, Bill Bailey from Houston, had prepared a selection of original recordings for Charlie to play for the crew on their way to the moon and back. Participating recording artists included a who's who of country music at that time: Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, Dolly Parton, Jerry Reed, Chet Atkins, Floyd Kramer, and more. The Apollo 16 mission ended successfully, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean on April 27, 1972, 11 days after its launch. It was recovered by sailors of the USS Ticonderoga. In 1976, Colonel Charles M. Duke, Jr., age 40, retired from NASA, actively participating in 5 Apollo missions and promoted to Brigadier General in 1979. In June 1986, Charlie Duke retired from the United States Air Force Reserve with 4,147 hours of flight time. 3,632 hours were in jet fighter aircraft. He's held executive positions from Orbit Corporation President, TechScore Chairman, Amherst Fiber Optics Director, and Lockheed Martin Consulting. From 2011 to 2012, he was Director of the Astronaut Scholarship Fund. In addition, this 36-year period of retirement from NASA is characterized by various real estate ventures and corporate executive positions, including President of Orbit Corporation, Director of Robbins Company and Amherst Fiber Optics, Chairman of Duke Resources, Chairman of TechScore, Director of the Astronaut Scholarship Fund, and ongoing consulting with Lockheed Martin. Charlie has received numerous awards. Some include NASA Distinguished Service Medal, Air Force Distinguished Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Legion of Merit, the Ivan C. Kinchlow Award from the Society of Experimental Test Pilots, Distinguished Eagle Scout Award, International Space Hall of Fame, U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, and many more. But in 2020, he was Texan of the Year for his boundless energy and leadership as a skilled Air Force fighter pilot and test pilot, his willingness to accept great risk in the interest of deep space exploration, his professional and personal leadership, dedication to family and the American mores, reflecting the highest standards of conduct to be emulated by future generations in the interest of inspiring our next greatest generations to excel in their futures. The San Diego Air and Space Museum takes great pride inducting Brigadier General Charles Charlie Duke into the International Air and Space Hall of Fame.